We may or may not all be here. All right, well, welcome to the Municipal Broadband and Digital Equity webinar. I'm Tanya Rakowski. I'm going to steal the show for 5 minutes and then get going with some introductions. Oh, and all the normal things. There we go. So we're going to talk about digital equity and broadband, but I wanted to have a quick chat with you about the overlay between digital broadband and community resilience partnership, which is where I'm coming from as a coordinator. This is a bit of an old slide, but we have about $5 million more or less to give grants to the communities for all the things that are on the Maine Won't Wait climate action plan, and that's about 72 different things. It's pretty easy for a town to join the partnership. They need to do a little bit of internal looking at what they've already done in terms of their climate resilience, bring the community in to chat with them about what their goals are, what their desires are, designate a person or group that's going to be the point person, and then adopt a resolution that they're going to follow up on this and take the money if we can get them funds. So there's about $50,000 each grant round per town so far we've been able to do, and those grant rounds come out twice a year. And then you get coordinators like me in each region to help go after other grants for the towns. And all of this is free for the towns. It's just a matter of them going through the process of signing up for the partnership. So this is a really good thing that can be added to looking at broadband, because we tend to think about climate resilience as these kind of events, dealing with downtown flooding, dealing with causeways flooding, and certainly the Community Resilience Partnership works with that. But there's 72 different things that you can do through our partnership. Modernizing buildings, so like rooftop solar or heat pumps, working with downtowns, for instance, on LED lighting to lower your carbon footprint. But one of the biggest things that you can do to lower carbon footprints for communities is to get people out of their cars. And so obviously broadband is a great way that we can help do that. And it is one of the climate strategies, is to get folks telecommuting. So we really would like to support digital equity and broadband as it goes into the more rural communities. And there is funding coming through the project I work on to do that. The other thing is we're looking at making sure that folks can communicate during emergency events. And obviously broadband communications is going to be one way that that can happen. If you'd like to learn more about that project, I'm the coordinator for the Down East region. But there's also coordinators. I think I saw someone come in already from Andrew Scoggin, and hopefully there will be other coordinators here that can follow up with you if you'd like to look at accessing funds through that program. So I'm going to stop sharing and introduce you to the main event here. So we have a number of folks joining us today from the Maine Broadband Coalition. We have Maine Connectivity Authority and National Digital Equity Center. They're all going to speak with us today. Miles, are you here today?
I am here.
Oh, hi guys. I thought you saw it. So Miles will be joining us from the Maine Broadband Coalition. Previously, he's been the Vice President for Strategic and Financial Planning at Internews, a nonprofit organization supporting journalism and truthful reporting in over 80 countries. We have Maggie Drummond Ball, the Strategic Partnership Director at the Maine Connectivity Authority. She comes to us from the Maine Community Foundation, where she was a Senior Program Officer and then Director of Philanthropy. And Susan Corbett, who's the Director of the National Digital Equity Center. She has founded the center. She's a public speaker, an educator, an advocate, and she's from Washington County too, so we especially appreciate her coming in and talking with us, since you really know the landscape. So I'm going to ask, let's see, folks from, oh boy, the Broadband Coalition to chat a little bit about how they're going, the broadband, how they see digital equity, and how that ties in with the regional coordinators that are going on out into our communities.
Sure. Thank you, Tanya. And I don't think I've heard anyone recite my resume in the last year, so that was interesting to be reminded of what my previous career was, which was not working in Maine, but I have boomeranged back after 20 years, and it's great to be back. Again, I'm Miles Smith, and I think I know most of the people on this call, but for the few of you folks who I have not met yet or worked with yet, Maine Broadband Coalition is a coalition of organizations that's working to achieve universal adoption and accessibility of broadband in the state of Maine. We are a partnership of various organizations in the nonprofit sector, some private companies that provide internet services, and then some organizations even on this call that support economic development and digital equity in their parts of the state. And we also have some organizations that are user groups, so people who whose clients and partners would benefit from better connectivity. So this is particularly in education and health sectors. What we do mostly is public education and information about broadband, internet, and digital equity to some extent too. Basically helping the public understand what they need to do in order to achieve better broadband, what kind of difference it would make if you had universal connectivity in your community. And then we also work to advocate for good policies that would achieve those goals. And I'll share a link to our website where you can see the 8 guiding values of the Maine Broadband Coalition. Those are the things that we use to try to build all of our advocacy around. So I'm not going to talk for too long. I will say, though, that my colleague Joe Oliva is also on the call. I'll give a wave. We are the 2 employees of the coalition. So you now see us both, and many of you will be seeing more of us in the future. And in terms of climate resiliency, I think great points were made in your initial slides there, Tanya, about reducing the need to drive. It's very clear that one of the things that the United States can do, that individuals can do, companies can do, and that we can do as a coalition and as partners is figure out how to get people out of their cars and into other forms of interaction when cars are not necessary. I'm personally a big advocate of biking and walking, but we know that a lot of Maine was not built to be capable of providing that level of convenience for some people to get to their doctor's office, to get to the store, to get to school. And so telecommuting and other forms of telemedicine or studying by distance learning, these are the ways that we can reduce that climate impact. So I think that's where we see broadband as a huge benefit. Sometimes I even wonder too if it's a little more complicated than that. Like if we all have great internet, then none of us needs to live close together, and then we wouldn't need to bike or walk because we could live way out off the grid and just use our internet to interact with everybody else and then drive whenever we want to. There's actually been a lot of data that since COVID-19, the number of miles driven by most people has not actually reduced, even though a lot of people are telecommuting for work. So I think it's something that needs like more study and analysis. But I mean, inherently, we all know that if we can cut off that extra trip to the doctor's office or that extra trip to an appointment that could be done virtually, that it definitely has a climate impact. So those are just my initial thoughts. Thanks for having us and look forward to the conversation.
Thank you very much for sharing with us. Maggie, I know there's a lot going on in your world and we are very keen to hear all about it.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Thanks for pulling these groups together. This is a really great conversation to have. So again, I'm with the Maine Connectivity Authority, which is our state's new broadband office that was established at the end of 2021 to be a quasi-governmental partner to administer our broadband and digital equity funding coming to Maine through the Infrastructure and Jobs Act. And I'll just give you a sense of kind of the big picture and what's happening right now, and then connect a couple of dots. So there are two kind of primary funding streams for broadband and digital equity coming to the state of Maine. The first is the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program, or the BEAD program. This is a primary source of funding for infrastructure investments. And the Digital Equity Act is the primary source of funding for our digital equity funding for the state of Maine. So we're right now in the middle of a planning process, a very fast planning process. We are doing surveys and community meetings and focus groups and interviews with organizations and individuals to help inform this plan. Most of the folks who are engaged in this process are on this call. So our regional partners are working to build coalitions and develop digital equity plans and to support community planning around broadband. Miles and Joe are helping to support those regional partners in hosting engagement opportunities, including community meetings. And of course, Susan is helping all of our regional partners facilitate through a digital equity planning process to result in a digital equity plan for each region, as well as for the tribal communities. So all of that is happening over the course of the next few months. We hope to have draft regional digital inclusion plans by the end of April. We'll be then bringing together all of our partners for a digital equity summit in early May to sort of decide what strategies go into the state plan, what strategies are being implemented at the regional scale, and we will then draft all of that into a broadband action plan to release for public comment by June 1st. So there'll be 30 days of public comment that will integrate into the final plan and submit it to the federal government by August 1st. So the result of all of that work that we're doing together now over the next few months will be significant implementation funding for the state of Maine. So one of the great opportunities that I see here is to sort of tie together our climate resiliency strategies and funding sources with some of those things that we'd like to be doing on the broadband side. It's a great opportunity to match funding for mutual goals that we can identify within our regions. One of the other opportunities here, of course, is that our digital inclusion plans are really focused on 8 what they call covered populations in the Digital Equity Act. And these are, I'll try to remember all of them, the low-income households, veterans, people who are members of racial or ethnic minority groups, people with disabilities of any kind, people with language barriers or low levels of literacy, people who are incarcerated or formerly incarcerated, older adults. Susan, I know there's some I'm missing here, but there are 8 covered populations, and many of those populations that have been identified in the Digital Equity Act as the most impacted by the digital divide, facing the most barriers to being connected, are also very vulnerable to the impacts of climate change in our communities and in our regions. So there's a sort of commonality in the people that we know we need to take into account in our planning and in our work, and finding the ways that we can work together to help support those most vulnerable populations, I think would be a really important part of our strategies. So I think I'll stop there. I'm sure there are lots of questions that folks will have, but I think one of the sort of practical things we could do is just ensure that all of the communities who are working on climate resilience work are connecting with their regional partners, and that our regional partners and tribal partners are engaged in those climate conversations as well. And of course, at the state level, we're happy to support all of that activity. And I think Miles is correct that there's, the very obvious connection of the goal in our climate plan to reduce miles driven. But I think there are lots of other connections between these two bodies of work that just haven't been fully explored. And this is one of those opportunities to start having more of those conversations right now while we're in the midst of planning and getting plans into place. So the timing feels really good for all of this.
I'm super excited for us to all be able to get to know each other. So I'm wondering if the regional coordinators could put up their hands for the broadband and introduce yourselves. I don't know who all of you are. We have Krista Thor. Krista, where are you from?
I'm from the Island Institute, and Island Institute is the regional tribal broadband partner for Hancock and Waldo counties.
Where else are we, folks?
Oh, and if I could popcorn it, I actually want to call out Hancock County Planning Commission, which is the community resilience partner for a lot of the overlapping areas as Island Institute's regional broadband partnership. So we're working closely with Avery from Hancock County Planning Commission.
Say hi, Avery. Yay. Yes, Avery's been great. We're working together a lot. What other broadband regional coordinators are out there? We have Thomas.
Hi, Tanya. I'm happy to be here. I'm Thomas Noonan with Eastern Maine Development Corporation. I'm joined by my colleague, Mike Elliott. We're both focusing on broadband planning and digital equity in Eastern Maine, which is primarily Piscataquis and Penobscot counties.
And then we have Jared.
Jared Tapley. I work for Northern Maine Development Commission, and we're covering the Aroostook County region.
And hi, Hildy.
Hi, Hildy Lipson. I'm with Grow Smart Maine, covering the Kennebec County region.
And did I see Ethan was waving? Yes.
Yep. Hi, I'm Ethan. I'm with the Androscoggin Valley Council of Governments, and we're covering Androscoggin County.
Fantastic. Thank you all for joining us. So we have scheduled into the meeting some time to break out. Oh, Elaine, I'm so sorry. I missed you. Elaine.
And Clara.
And Clara.
So,
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm Elaine Abbott with Sunrise County Economic Council, and I'm the rural regional tribal broadband partner for Washington County.
And Clara.
Take it away, Clara.
Thanks, Elaine. I'm Clara McCool. I'm with the Greater Portland Council of Governments. We are the regional tribal broadband partner for Cumberland County, and we actually have our sustainability team is supporting 5 towns in the community resilience partnership.
So we'll have a little bit of time after we hear from Susan to go into breakout rooms, each for our regions and counties, to meet and chat with your broadband regional coordinator and get a sense of where you're going. But right now, I'd like to ask Susan to take it away and tell us about work going on at the National Digital Equity Center.
Thanks, Tanya, and good morning, everyone. I feel like I have all my chicks in one nest. This is so exciting to see you all on the screen this morning. So my favorite topic, digital equity. I am the executive director of the National Digital Equity Center, which has a goal of closing the digital divide here in the state of Maine. We provide free digital skills classes to all Maine residents. We support affordable device programs. We advocate for the Affordable Connectivity Program, and we write digital equity plans. I am also the co-chair of the State of Maine Digital Equity Task Force, along with my partner in crime, Maggie Drummond Ball. And I am the consultant on all the regional and tribal broadband partners that we and the plans that we are creating across the state. I'm going to go ahead and share screen for a sec. All right, everybody can see that, I'm assuming, yes. Okay, so for all of our regional and tribal broadband partners who are on the call, this is what it's all about, right? Is what exactly are we talking about for digital equity and digital inclusion, and what does it mean? Digital equity is the condition in which all individuals and communities have the information capacity needed for full participation in our society, democracy, and economy. And as we know, during the pandemic, how deep the digital divide was, where students couldn't connect to school, to their classrooms, because they didn't have a broadband connection or not enough of a broadband connection, or the family couldn't afford a broadband connection. The same for remote workers. People were suddenly remote workers and they didn't have a broadband connection or not enough, or they couldn't afford it, or they didn't have the equipment in order to be a remote worker. And then there were older adults who were already battling isolation and loneliness. And then we had a shelter-in-place order. And we had many older adults across our state who didn't have an internet connection, didn't have a device, and didn't have the skills to learn how to connect to family and friends and healthcare providers. We achieved digital equity. Digital equity we know is necessary for civic and cultural participation, employment, lifelong learning, and access to essential services. And we reached digital equity by promoting digital inclusion, which is affordable broadband, affordable equipment, digital skills training, and public computer access. When we think about all of this in relation to climate resiliency, we talked about reducing our carbon footprints by not driving that much as we normally do. But everybody needs to be connected, and everybody needs to afford that broadband connection, and they need devices, and they need the digital skills training. There are a lot of municipalities that would be bringing on new tools to manage their climate resiliency plans, and making sure that everyone is educated on how to do that, how to access those GIS maps, how to manipulate changing things on their GIS programs to see what changes happens if we get X amount of rain or the climate starts to change. And so ensuring that everybody has the digital inclusion components to participate and to promote climate resiliency, I think is really important. And for many of our digital equity plans across the state, there is a component in there addressing that for sure. When we write digital equity plans, as we're writing for each of the regions, it is about affordable broadband, affordable equipment, digital skills training, public computer access, computer advocates, and broadband adoption. Is there a plan for affordable broadband in each of our communities? Do people have access to the FCC Affordable Connectivity Program? Can they sign up for that to get a discount? The FCC program is a $30 per month discount. It is a $75 discount if you live on tribal lands. Is there equipment? Is there a plan in place for equipment for community members that do not have access to equipment because they can't afford it? What's our plan going to be around that? And each of our regional and tribal broadband partners are going to be addressing the barriers as well as the recommendation for each of these digital inclusion components. Digital literacy, which is now called digital skills, it's being able to participate in school and work and be able to sign on to your Social Security website. It's applying for a job. There's so many things now that our world requires digital skills for so many things that we do. I always like this little statistic for when the classes that we're doing at the National Digital Equity Center. So 94% of our students like to do video streaming because it's all about being entertained. It's about Netflix and Hulu. And if that's the carrot that we have to dangle in front of folks that are non-users of technology, and using those video streaming services might be the little bit that encourages them to come online. And once they do, we know at the National Digital Equity Center that if someone takes one class, they are most likely to take 3 or 4 additional classes with us. 91% of our students participate in the Microsoft classes as well as QuickBooks, which is an accounting program for small business. So it's Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Publisher, email. 79% of our students take some level of internet safety, protecting their protecting themselves against fraud and abuse. We really would like to see that at 100%, and we work really hard to get everyone to sign up for that particular class. 67% of our students take a video conferencing, Zoom, Skype, FaceTime, Wi-Fi calling. We teach people how to do that. We often work with families. At the onset of the pandemic, we worked with adult children and older and their parents to help them connect with each other, so they were connected during the pandemic. And then, not surprising, only 37% of our students take a social media class, and that's because most of it's pretty self-taught. Is there public computer access? So if someone doesn't have a computer or their computer crashes, can they go someplace to connect to work or a healthcare appointment, or to connect with family and friends? Adult ed programs, libraries are great resources for having public computers available for their patrons, their community members, as well as having public Wi-Fi. So all of our libraries and schools across the state are part of the Maine State Library Network, and they all get at least 100 meg symmetrical connection. So there are great resources for folks in the community to have access to broadband, as well as some devices. We look for community volunteers. At the National Digital Equity Center, we have partner on-site classes where we hold classes at an organization, we now are calling them digital navigators, which are community advocates, and they are hosting the class at a location, and we bring the instructor in over Zoom. So that's it. It means there are more and more organizations that are helping us close the digital divide, certainly across the state. We look at broadband adoption. We talk about take rate and do all homes have a computer. So I did a little bit of statistics for Washington County. 508 of the households that have a computer, there are 580, 483 have a computer, 397 have a broadband connection. This is not all of Washington County, it's just part of Washington County. We looked at family median income for Washington County, and the number of homes that have family income less than $25,000. It's 22% of families in Washington County, and so that affordability becomes a goal for the region. That's the regional plan. The National Digital Equity Center provides those free digital skills classes. We write those digital equity plans. We have programs that offer free devices for populations throughout the state. We have a partner affiliate on-site program, and we have a volunteer program. We are providing free training to learn how to become a digital navigator. And digital navigators are trusted guides in a community that help people get online and apply for the ACP benefit and to learn how to use the device. And I'll put my email in the chat if anyone's interested. Of course, feel free to reach out at any time. I like to show you statistics, like what's happening, right? So 67% of our students are 50 years and older, 27 are 70 and older, and my favorite number, 8% of our students are 80 years old and older. And that tells us that if you want to learn, you can. And we have, we absolutely love providing our educational services to the older adults across the state. 41% of our students have a high school diploma or less, 28% are unemployed, 34% are retired, and 48% of our students have a family median of income of $34,900 or less. These statistics tell us that we are reaching some of Maine's most vulnerable populations. As with any program, we need to measure outcomes. So is the digital skills training increasing workforce skills training, which increase employability and may increase better pay, better jobs, and does it increase access to additional educational attainment? You know, once you take one class online, maybe it opens the door for other classes. And for our older adults aging in place, can our older adults stay in their homes longer with the use of technology? Does it reduce isolation and loneliness? And does the use of technology for telehealth visits improve healthcare outcomes? So I'm going to stop share. I'm always available to answer any questions and to connect with any of you. It takes all of us to close the digital divide here in our state. I am so excited to be working with all of our regional and tribal broadband partners as they create their plan for their communities and for their counties. And I think all of us together will actually help close our digital divide across the state. So thanks so much for inviting me to present this morning.
Thank you so much, Susan. We're going to take about 10 to 15 minutes to all head into breakout rooms. If you have a look at the breakout rooms, you'll see they are labeled by county. Not all the counties are there. Some of them, there's multiple counties for one room. Head on in and you'll meet your regional coordinator there. I'd like you to, beyond getting to know each other and talking about some of the issues in your region, also come back to us in about 12 minutes or so and with a question or two for the panel. I think we've lost Maggie, but for the rest of the group, folks who have spoken today, or questions you have for the group in general that you'd like to chew on as a group, we'll do that. So please find yourself a room and hop on in and get to know your neighbors. All the rooms are open now.
Yeah, I don't want to seem any more clueless than necessary, but I have no idea how to get into the breakout
Okay,
room.
so if you go down on your screen, you click on breakout room, and then you can choose a room. And just click on it, and you should go right in.
It's not showing up for non-hosts.
Oh, okay. Says all rooms are open. Oh, this is one we hadn't anticipated. Elaine, do you have thoughts?
I think Elaine may have already gone into one of the breakout rooms.
Elaine just got it. Okay. Let's see. Okay, I think if you click on it and then go scroll all the way down on rooms, you should be able to join.
I don't even see a button for breakout rooms.
I don't either, Tanya.
Is this a Zoom toolbar function?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
It is.
Theoretically.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Okay.
Under
I guess I believe the host needs to invite each participant to a room. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, I will invite you guys to a room then very quickly here. And Krista, where would you like to be going?
Well, Hancock and Waldo should probably be combined for this, but Hancock County, because I know that there's at least two of us. All right.
Okay. Claire, where are you
going? Cumberland County.
Cumberland, there she goes. Ethan.
Androscoggin County.
Androscoggin. Oh, I don't see Androscoggin. Do you have a second choice?
I mean, that's my coverage area, so I guess I'm okay.
See if I will try to create a room here for you very quickly.
Okay.
Let's see, we have G. Sherry Hello.
Yeah, is state level an option?
No, it's not. So hop wherever you'd like.
The one that has Kennebec.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Kennebec?
Kennebec.
Yeah.
Okay. Hildy?
Kennebec County.
Kennebec. And Jared?
Aroostook County.
Aroostook?
Yes.
Kathy? Kathy? Where would you like to go? Okay, Lynn?
I just want to stay and chat with you for a second.
Okay. Let's see. I think Joe?
I'm happy to be wherever you want me to be. Yeah, I do statewide stuff, so.
Okay.
Same with me, Tanya. This is Miles. You can just split us up and throw us anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can go anywhere, Tanya, too.
I'm sorry, I didn't see who you were speaking. Oh, Susan. Okay. Susan, wherever. Susan.
Hey, Tanya.
Yes.
Michael and I can go into Piscataquis County. You could split us up into Piscataquis and Penobscot, but I'm not aware if anyone. Okay, perfect. We get both.
Okay, and
Thank
Michael.
you.
Oh, okay. You're happy there? Okay. Rachel, where would you like to go?
Washington County.
And Rob?
Washington County also.
Washington. Sam?
Washington County.
Okay. And Ethan, we need to create a room for you. I do not see anyone else, Ethan, is heading there. So would you like me to put you in a different county just to chat?
Sure. Yeah, whatever dealer's choice.
I don't see that there's anybody else from your region, so.
No, that's understandable.
Okay. And Kathy? Okay.
No, hey, Tanya, no cell access. They had no internet access at all. And the damage that was caused and the unnecessary deaths and injuries due to climate change or climate impact and lack of infrastructure, whether it be broadband or cell, is just really startling. So so here we have Rachel, do you want to take a few minutes to talk, because this is your Washington County group, about what you do?
Hi, everybody. My name is Rachel Williams. I work for the National Digital Equity Center, and I am the first of many, I hope, digital navigators for Washington County. My focus is primarily with older adults across the county, and I teach digital skills, or NDEC teaches digital skills. I'm currently recruiting local partners for our on-site partner class program, so that folks can access classes with a live instructor via Zoom in their communities. And we hope to have between 5 and 8 partnerships going by the beginning of April. And right now we're pretty well covering the eastern end of the county. If folks know organizations, libraries, community senior centers, that health centers who might be interested in hosting classes, I would love to talk to you. And that is we also do have digital navigators who are starting to work in both Pleasant Point and oh, no, they're not starting yet in Indian Township, but they're working on it. So
how would someone, can you put your
oh, I'm so
contact?
Sorry. Absolutely.
No, because yeah, that would be great if
I will
either
drop
Rob
both
or Sam know somebody.
Absolutely. I will drop both my email address and our website into the chat.
So Sam and Rob, do you have any questions for any of us or Tanya even?
Oh, I don't.
Nothing? Okay. So what we're working on, excuse me, and there's 13 regional and tribal broadband partners across the state. And as Maggie and Susan mentioned, we are working on a digital equity plan for Washington County. Each region is working on their own. And those digital equity plans will be rolled into a statewide digital equity plan. So I'm also going to put my, if anybody has any interest in joining our coalition meetings just as an interested member of the public, or if you would like to become a partner with us on the development of this plan, please feel free to contact me. Excuse me, and here is so yeah, we welcome feedback from everyone. So the Washington County Coalition has 13 partners on it, representing everything from Healthy Acadia to Adult Ed, Washington County Community College, tribal representation. Who else do we have? My goodness. So we've got 13 career centers. So we have continuing education, adult education. We have business folks on there, excuse me, workforce development people, health related folks, people who work with older Mainers. So we've got quite a wide variety, but we're always looking for input from folks. So please, if you have any questions whatsoever about what we're doing, or if I can help your community with broadband infrastructure, checking out what's available possibly for build outs in your community, please reach out. I'm all things broadband at SCEC.
I have a question, Elaine. It was just came up as I was listening to Susan, which was I'm becoming very aware that there's this intersectionality of need, where we have like an older population in the Venn diagram that is increasingly has disabilities, whereas hearing or vision disabilities, and also maybe being impacted by poverty. So how do we deal with people who have multiple barriers and make sure that they're not left behind? You and I are both dealing with elderly parents that have disabilities, so I know it comes up for us every day.
And it comes up for me as well. I am obviously a hearing person, but I was raised by deaf parents. And my father is currently in a nursing home rehab center. He broke his ankle. Sorry, that was me. He broke his hip. And so he is completely deaf and has been his whole life. And the frustration while he's in this facility, my trying to communicate with his care team, all these other, so I completely understand. And that's why our coalition, our Washington County Coalition, people were and organizations were specifically picked to cover all of those veterans, older Mainers, folks with disabilities, the homeless or the unhoused or underhoused, all of those. We have people who are representing youth voices. We can't forget about them either. We want to keep our young people here. So that is why this coalition, our coalition was chosen for every single one of them covers at least or serves at least one of the covered populations. Down East Community Partners, for example, covers all of them. And so to try to get, so part of how we're getting that feedback is in a couple of different ways. One is that we're conducting interviews with the selected, or the covered populations, one-on-one interviews to get some feedback on the barriers, what they are. Another way statewide is that Maine Connectivity Authority. And Joe, if you're able to drop in the chat the link to that survey, a statewide survey, which talks about barriers and how those can be addressed. What are the barriers? We also have Mano a Mano on our coalition for folks who English is not their first language. So we definitely have covered, Washington County is so amazingly diverse. And so it took 13 partners for us to cover all those. So it is pretty exciting work, but we need more people. And yeah, so you can certainly click on that link. Thank you, Joe, for that statewide broadband survey. Share it with your neighbors, friends. The survey just takes a few minutes to do, but it is important information for the state to gather, such as how much is too much for you? What are you comfortable paying for internet? If you needed a computer or a device of some variety, how much is too much to afford? And so all of those things are going to be rolled into a statewide plan moving forward. And so it's really a huge undertaking and so important. And I'm sure Rachel and Joe can attest to this. We need to hear from as many people as possible. So even if, say, Rob, just say you don't fall into any of the covered populations, it doesn't matter. You can still take it anyway. They want to hear from as many people as possible. So, Joe, did I hit that pretty well?
Yeah, the way that I can actually drop it in the chat here as well. The Maine Connectivity Authority. So they're in the process of getting together their broadband action plan, which is like kind of the step needed in order to secure BEAD funding, which is the funding that a lot of hay has been made about, just in terms of like hundreds of millions of dollars headed to the state for this purpose. That's all coming from BEAD, more or less. And so this broadband action plan is the step that we need to take before we can secure that funding, which includes not only kind of community input along the lines of affordability and that type of thing, but also other digital equity stuff. And so and when I say they, the Maine Connectivity Authority has taken this kind of multi-pronged approach to collecting information from Mainers in the community, not only in covered populations, but more broadly. They want to hear from everybody. And so one of the tools that they use is the survey that Elaine was speaking about. And I think they view that tool as kind of the broadest coverage of data that they can get, just in terms of this is the easiest thing to disseminate. Anybody can do it. Anybody can fill it out. Anybody can share it with a family member, neighbor, friend, whatever, their own community networks. But then we also, and when I say we now, I'm talking about the Maine Broadband Coalition is partnering with the regional broadband partners and MCA to hold these community meetings, one of which is happening in Mono a Mono in Washington County coming up here pretty soon. But they're also doing focus groups and those types of things as well to gather experiences that people have, all in order to basically fill out the best possible broadband action plan that they can get. So
I think it's important to point out that that survey is obviously in English, and MCA is in the process of translating that survey into more than a dozen languages right now. So that will become, I think it's next week. All those will be coming out, Somali and Spanish and all these, for to ensure that everyone can take it. But please feel free to share that, whether you have a mailing list or, like Joe said, a friend, neighbor. I had asked someone to take it, but I had to over the telephone do it for her because she lacks literacy skills and has a low reading level. So I helped her take it, and I don't mind you send somebody my way. I'll do the exact same thing. I have no problem with it. It's so important that we get this information. So.
Thank you guys all. We're going to close up the room and go back to the main group. I feel like we probably should have made this a 2-hour chat.
Yeah.
Reach out anytime, you guys. Reach out anytime.
Yeah, what I'll also say, well, so just quickly, what I'll say too is the Maine Broadband Coalition has a bunch of these resources by way of recording and those types of things. We have like kind of hour-long sessions with that are like broadband 101s. We have caucus recordings where we give these types of informational talks with legislators and those types of things too. So just visit our website or find us on YouTube or wherever, and we have all those recordings up there. So if you want to delve into hours of this, you can.
Thank you so much. I'll see you guys in the big room.
Thanks.
They don't come. Thank you all for coming back. Some of you, some of us. I'm sorry that didn't work as smoothly as I'd hoped. I sent us all away to have some questions. So are there questions in people's minds?
Is everyone back?
It doesn't seem like it. It seems like we've lost some people, but the breakout rooms are closed. Oh,
here they come. Here they come.
Thanks everybody for coming back, and I hope you had some good conversations in the smaller rooms. Are there questions for the bigger group that we were thinking about in our smaller rooms?
The main things we just shared out was just the overlaps between our regions and projects, and whether it's community resilience or climate resilience partnership or this regional broadband partners. Just a question of like, what's the best way to organize statewide, who's doing what where, and share data. So, where we have and that might be kind of an MCA question or a question to bring to the group regional tribal broadband partners meeting later this week. But if there's anything being done at the community resiliency partnership from like a statewide info sharing perspective, helpful to know.
And in the Washington County group, so it was great to meet the folks here from Washington County. And one of the things that we did highlight, and maybe Joe, if you can drop that survey back in the chat. One thing I did highlight is that Maine Connectivity Authority is currently running, it's live now, a statewide broadband survey. And so we dropped it in the chat, and Joe's going to be so kind as to drop it into the chat. Anyone can take it. The state is having this survey translated into more than a dozen languages, which I think is coming out next week. This is the English version for now, but anyone can take it, and it's super important that people take it. Some of the questions, as I explained to the group, are things like how much is too much for you to pay for internet? If you need a new device, how much is too much? So this is really focused on digital equity and inclusion. So feel free to share that survey link with anyone and everyone. We want everyone in the state, as many people as possible, to be heard from.
Any thoughts from your group, Hildy?
Well, we had an odd assortment of representatives with Miles and then G from the Maine Department of Agriculture and Conservation. Just sort of figuring out what each of our roles are. And the question for me is, having just started recently, what are the climate groups active in Kennebec County? And I don't know that answer. So G works with farms and food at the state level, and then Miles with the broadband committee. So we are just trying to figure out how to make the connections between climate resiliency and broadband and who to work with.
I can certainly get you that. I don't see our climate person there, but that is gettable, and I will send you that information about local coordinator.
Thank you.
Can I get that information as well?
Who said that?
Sam.
Sam.
Thank you.
So you're in Kennebec?
I know, I'm in Washington County.
Okay. I'm your person in Washington County.
Okay, great. I'm at the Pleasant Point Tribal Government.
Oh, hey, cool. Nice to meet you.
You too.
So I've been talking to Jasmine Lamb, and I think there's a couple other folks there, but yeah, I'll put you on the mailing list. Cool. Nice to meet you, Sam.
Thank you. You too.
Let's see, Clara.
Hi.
Any thoughts from your group?
Yeah, so Ethan and I were in the same group with Susan, and we talked a little bit just about how ABCOG and GPCOG are similarly the service provider for the towns in our region that are part of the Community Resilience Partnership, and that we've started some internal conversations and think there will be like overlap in the future as far as like that planning and the Regional Tribal Broadband Partners Program, but definitely still at the beginning of that conversation. Yeah, so that was our main discussion. I don't know if Ethan and Susan were both in that group. I don't know if I missed anything, but
no, I think you summed it up pretty well.
So one of the things that was on my mind was that when we're dealing with broadband issues, sometimes we're not dealing with people who have one problem, but they have multiple things going on. They're elderly and they can't hear. They're struggling with their finances, and they're also struggling with a second language, and how we try to meet those multiple needs. And Elaine was Johnny on the spot on that one, but it was just, I think it's easy for us to compartmentalize these issues, and I'm hoping that this is a group, especially when we're talking about climate resilience and digital equity, that we're instead thinking wide about how everyone can be brought into this boat and not leaving people behind. Any wrapping up sort of thoughts from folks?
I'm just going to really encourage everybody again to take that survey.
Susan, any last thoughts from you?
I really think that has to be a lot of focus on the municipalities and ensuring that they have the skills to use any of the tools that are being developed around climate resiliency. We can always put together a course curriculum, a class for them. So, happy to work with all of you on this as you move forward with working with those municipalities.
Do you find, Susan, that there's sometimes challenges at the municipality office itself with digital literacy?
Yeah, well, you have when you think of the local town offices, the selectmen, a lot of retired people, their skills are limited. A lot of the offices don't have the latest equipment. They're still working off of old Windows machines. So, or they may not have a robust enough broadband connection to utilize a lot of like the GIS mapping tool. So I think there's the skills. I think that if you're introducing climate resiliency mapping to municipalities, ensuring that there's a class to teach people how to use those maps, I think is going to be important.
We started this conversation with conversations about coffee. Everybody seems a little quiet today. I'd like to thank you all so much for coming, and I'm hoping this is the beginning of a really robust and broad conversation about how these two projects can work together and support each other to make our communities more resilient and better able at talking to each other. It is silent. Thank you all so much for coming. We're going to end right on time.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks, Tanya.
Thank you guys.
Looking forward
so
to the
much.
collaboration.
Yeah,
thanks everyone. Bye bye.
Yeah, nice to see you, Rob.
All right.
You remember you.